Welcome to IVF Parent. Today's episode is incredibly special. Well, all of them are, but this is a little bit different. For decades, when you grew your family through surrogacy, it meant navigating agencies that are traditional, and now it's just staggering. There's hundreds of agencies. It's a system that both intended parents and gestational carriers really feel overwhelmed. It's complicated. Where do they turn? Who do they trust? Right? I mean, when you have hundreds of people in this field, it can get very, very complicated. But today's guests are trying to switch it up and do things a little bit differently. So welcome to Daniel Malik, Joshua Brost, and Sam Martin. They are the co-founders of Pineapple Family, which is an end-to-end platform that helps intended parents, surrogates, and donors to match, coordinate, and complete their journeys entirely independent of a traditional agency. And their business didn't start in the boardroom. They were the people on the ground doing the work. It's deeply personal to them. Joshua and Daniel faced financial and emotional setbacks in trying to build their family, which is not untypical. And then Sam is also a gestational carrier, and they had a connection to the home state of Minnesota, and that is where they connected. And Sam actually was Joshua and Daniel's surrogate. So together they took what they didn't like and how they felt when they were going through the agency system, and they decided to switch it up. They also have the journey doula, which is so important when you're a gestational carrier, to have somebody that's, on your side while you are going through childbirth and labor, because that's no joke, right? I mean, let's face it, growing a human being and getting one safely out in the world takes work. So, welcome, Daniel, Joshua, Sam. Okay, so for you guys, you definitely have spoken about the emotional and financial toll for your first surrogacy attempt. I think it was traditional, right?
Gestational.
Oh, good. Thank God, gestational, because traditional is like, I do one case a year on traditional, but that is definitely a whole separate ball of wax. So how did that go, your first journey? Because I want to say was it a good journey, your first journey? Because you have two children, right? Yes?
We have two children, but it was two children from three journeys. So just saying that, I think you can imagine how the first journey went.
Wow. Yeah.
I suppose I don't know what you would call officially a journey. So just for context, Sam actually carried both of our children in independent journeys. And our first journey was through an agency. So sort of the standard way people tend to think about how you have to do a surrogacy journey in the US.
Yep.
We were matched with an agency through a concierge service. So we did not pick the agency. We picked the surrogate on paper, as it were. And had a very brief match meeting, video meeting, similar to the Zoom that we're on now.
Yep.
We liked her. She certainly said all of the right things. We went through what we now in hindsight feel like was a pretty abridged approvals process outside of the medical approval. The medical approval was very standard. The medical approval was we used RMA San Francisco, very thorough, very deliberate. She was quite healthy to be a surrogate.
Okay.
And we can talk more about the nits and gnats of that experience, but I'll just fast forward to we did a double embryo transfer. And we got to our betas, and not only were the betas negative, but the doctor called us very concerned that there was no progesterone in the surrogate system.
That is concerning. Yes.
So she had, we learned later she had stopped taking the shots, and there's a lot that sort of came out after that. So our first journey was, to say the least, not a pleasant journey.
It sucked.
Wow. And I have to say, sorry, I'm putting my phone on Do Not Disturb my computer. I have to say that you were not only with an agency, you had a concierge service. So if you look at that, that should have been top tier. That should have been better than you just finding an agency, right?
You would think.
You would think.
No, that's
Yes,
what I'm saying, right?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's why can you all the people, and I know that's why you started your Pineapple Family. And don't worry, we'll do an intro when we run the podcast and talk about you guys. But you would think so. Yeah, I talked to another couple who they did not mention the agency, and they also had a double embryo transfer. They got children, but now that they're in this space, they realize that first of all, double embryo transfers are not the norm. What year was this?
Um, it was not that long ago. I think our first journey, Danny, you can jump into the.
Yeah, I think it was 21 or 22.
Yeah, yes, it was still one embryo transfer then. Was there a
Yeah.
reason why they said two, or
Well,
is it
there
just
been
because?
at least 21, you guys, because I had Henry in 21.
Yeah, so it
And
was 20.
Yeah, yeah,
Then it
yeah.
would have been 2021. Yeah. No,
Yeah, yeah.
it's something that we talked at length about with our doctor.
Okay.
And yeah, and it was, we looked at the risks. We looked at, I'm a bit of a science nerd, so I actually had him send me all of the papers and sort of the long-term studies done on it. And, again, knowing what we know now, being deeper in the industry versus knowing what we know then, would we have done something differently? Maybe. But a big part of it was economy, right? I mean, this is so
It is
expensive.
so expensive. And I know my surrogate carried my twins. Now, she had the transfer in 2000. So they were born in 2001. So at that, like I said, that was the day and age when, you put multiple embryos in. It was day three. I know people gasp when they hear that, how many embryos that were transferred. But it was my last cycle. It was day three. There was no PGD testing. He was essentially throwing away like four embryos inside her. Not really throwing them away, but he knew, those were not good embryos. And my frozen embryos never survived the thaw. So it was a completely different time. Completely. Right? For sure.
Even when we did it, I mean, you have to think some parents are just older.
Yes.
It's hard because that's part of. Well, it's true.
Well, I mean, I'm not a spring chicken, so.
I don't think the man stuff matters as much as the lady stuff.
It doesn't, but they're
But
finding out that the
emotionally,
man's age does matter, actually. When you get
Well,
closer to 40 and then in the early 50s, and the older the man, now granted, a man's sperm can last, I mean, he can have a baby at 80, right?
yes. But Sam, I mean, I will say,
Well,
listen, we know I'm 46, right? I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Everything hurts, right? All the time. Like,
Yes, because if you had a baby at
so
26, you could pull like three all-nighters in a row and you
that's
wouldn't be
right.
like, oh,
yeah.
So there is, there is sort of a romantic something to like, okay, let's get it all done with, and then we're not as old as parents.
yeah. But in this space, I have to say, you guys are young, right? Yeah,
We've
for sure.
Younger.
I'd say we are on the younger side of things. And again, back to what I said earlier, I think that comes down to with just how expensive it is, right? You have to be
Yeah.
at a certain place in life to be able to do this.
You do. And then for people like me, you spend 8 years trying and doing it on your own. So I was doing artificial inseminations, and then I did like 13 IVF cycles. So by the time I got to my own surrogacy, I was older because I had already spent all those years trying and failing. Every so often I would get pregnant. It's so funny because I talk to people like Sam who get pregnant effortlessly and, have a baby. And yeah, it's hard on your body for sure. Giving birth and growing a human is no joke, right? But I couldn't even, get out of the starting gate barely. So it's just ironic that I talk to people like you. Speaking of Sam, you've done this 3 times, but I know you've felt like in the traditional agency model, they treated you like inventory. So can you kind of paint a picture of what that felt like and how that experience brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, so like I had never known any surrogates or anything like that. I just knew that it was something that I wanted to do. And I was kind of humming and hawing about if I was going to have another kid or not. And I finally was just like, you're 39, your kid's 20, like we're done with this. Like
Yeah.
we're done. And so I just started researching, and there really wasn't a whole lot of information out there on how to do it. Like everything just geared towards agencies, agency. And so I just started researching agencies, and I just thought that was the route to go. And I interviewed a few, and I went with the one that, like, the lady was great. Like, she emailed me right away. She answered all my questions. Like, I have a law degree as well, so I'm asking all the questions, like a million and one
Good for
questions.
you.
And
Yeah.
she's answering everything, and it doesn't matter how small or how big it is. And I like that, because a lot of times when I do that, people get annoyed with me. I don't care, but they get annoyed. And so I'm like, well, I need to know what I'm getting into. So I really felt like, you know, like that was good, and that was something that I could work with. And, they're telling me the process and that they're going to be there for me and all of these things. And I'm not saying my coordinator wasn't, but it was just like, I thought she was new, the way she kept saying, like, oh, I don't know the answer to that, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. And, or she wasn't stepping in places that she should have stepped in. And I'm just like, I thought you were here for me, like, but you don't know anything, or you're telling me what I can and I can't do. Like, this isn't what I thought it would be. And at the end of the day, like, I just found out that they weren't really for me. So this agency that I just happened to choose was also on a law firm that represented the parents.
Yeah. I used to do that actually.
Yeah.
I
And
did it in the
so,
very beginning, and yeah, it was too much. Yes, you knew too
yeah,
much.
I was just like, if I had known that,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have chose them. But I don't know how I would have known that. Um,
Yeah, you would. I mean, I would disclose that because I'm an attorney. So it's interesting that that wasn't disclosed to you, because I know four that I can off the top of my head think about that, and they would disclose that, like disclose that to the surrogates and the intended parents. Dear surrogate, you're applying to an agency. This is my law office, or I own this agency. I will be representing the intended parents. If I represent them, anything you say is not a secret.
yeah.
That's what should have happened.
And I don't know if, like, obviously the attorney wasn't my coordinator, but I just feel like everything was geared towards them. Like when I'm asking
Mm,
about pricing or asking about, can I get this or can I get that? They're just like, ooh, maybe you can, maybe you can't. But it just kind of made it seem like you
yeah.
can, but don't ask for too much because they're already paying all of this money. And so when you're doing that, you're not looking out for me,
Yeah.
in my best interest. You're worried about them and their pockets and making them happy because they're the ones that are paying you.
Yeah.
And
Now it's flipped, I have to say. Now it's more of a surrogate world than an intended parents because of all the agencies. There's such a lack of surrogates. So it's definitely surrogates
you,
definitely.
you still see a lot of surrogates that say what I'm saying.
You're right, even today, because I'm on all the forums. Are you on all the Facebook forums? Yes.
Yeah, or like,
Mhm.
oh, the agency told me this is what I get paid. And I'm like, no. How are they going to tell you what you get paid when, first of all, it's your body?
Yeah.
Second of all, you work that out with your parents and your attorneys. Like, the agency shouldn't have any part in that. As
Well,
far
agencies actually they set that up so that by the time you get to legal, all that should be decided. That's
right, in a comp sheet, but like they're saying this, they're telling me I'm getting paid $50,000. Like, the agency is telling these surrogates how much they're getting paid. It's
yeah,
not the surrogate picking what
yeah.
they want to get paid and then that being presented to parents. And
Yeah, well,
I
I
just,
have to
right.
say a lot of agencies they're going whatever the surrogate wants. Now they do say, like, some first time surrogates say I want $100,000, and they're like, girlfriend,
You can pick what you want, but you might not get chosen, or it'll take you
yeah.
Yeah. And
And
then
I think it,
my agency, they gave me a range. So I did like that. They gave
Yes,
me
that's what typical. They give you a range. First time, this is the typical range. Second time, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They
and
should
now,
do.
I mean, I think it needs to be said just up front. There are, as you said, there's what 400 agencies in the United States today,
Over
um,
400.
over 400, and there's more flavors of agencies than there are ice cream at Baskin Robbins, right? They all do
Absolutely.
things differently. So, you know, we have absolutely heard from agencies and from surrogates who have worked with agencies who said, yeah, I picked my comp. Like, totally, I picked my comp.
Absolutely.
We also hear a lot though from surrogates, and I think Amanda just did a podcast with us, and she said, nope, the agency told me first journey is this much,
Right?
second journey is this much, take it or leave it. And we
Yeah.
hear that a lot. And that is something we like as a platform, and again, not to put words into Sam or Daniel's mouth, but it's just something we fundamentally disagree with.
I think that was the model that agencies started with 20 plus years ago. But I think a lot of agencies have definitely gone away with that because you're right. It's the woman's body. I mean, she should be able to set her own comp, what she feels, right? Because I mean, surrogates, first time surrogates, and I know you guys know this, right? And I mean, Sam, what you know now compared to what you knew didn't know, it's like huge,
Very,
right?
very different.
Very different. So, right? So you've got to take all those factors in and, and I think the first contact like you had with that first agency, even though that did end up not being a good agency, I think at least the coordinator for the most part, she answered your questions. And that's what a surrogate should do. Get her questions answered for sure.
That wasn't even the coordinator. Like they had different things for different parts. So that must have been like their person who speaks to the
Intake.
when you begin.
Yeah.
And they had like a matching person, and she helped me with a lot that the matching
okay, good.
person did. And then I actually, before I went with my first couple, I was matched with a single dad in Canada, and he backed out last minute. And so the couple that I ended up caring for had initially picked me, but I had a trip scheduled. So we weren't on the same time schedule.
Yeah.
So they passed me because of that. But then by the time me and the other guy didn't work out, I was like, I'm not going on that trip anymore. So then the original couple that picked me was like, okay, we're going to go with her now. So then I had a different coordinator. They had a different coordinator, and they flipped a coin to see who we got. And we got the one that wasn't the better of the two. So no way for us to know that,
No.
Yeah.
Until you go through it for sure. Yeah, there's no way. Okay, so how did you guys all meet and decide that you were right for each other?
So Josh and I actually went to high school together.
Oh,
So we knew each other, and I was doing my first journey. I had went on a trip to the Dells with my family. We do that every year. I hadn't really shared too much with everybody outside of my family and my close friends, or if somebody had ran into me. And my mom's taking all these pictures, and I'm just like, I don't want her to post these pictures and then people be like, speculating, oh, Sam's pregnant, whispering all this stuff. I wanted to control the narrative. So I made
and they're like, geez, how many kids is she? Right.
And I only had two, and I really don't care. It's nobody's business what I'm doing with my body. But I wanted to control the narrative, not anybody else. And so I made a post. I think I was maybe 35 or 36 weeks.
Okay.
And Josh kind of reached out to me and was like, oh, I wish I would have known that you did this. Me and my husband are going through it. And so I just kind of became a resource for them while they were going through their journey.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to put the timing into context, I mean, this would have been, well, like you said, Sam, this is 2021, right? Sam and I graduated I'll just say I graduated high school in the late 90s.
Yeah. And
so
this is
it had been
COVID-ish, right?
Yeah, it was on the tail end of COVID. But we had not stayed in very close contact. We were mainly Facebook friends. Sam and I played in an orchestra together in high school. So we did, I think, see each other at our high school orchestra director's retirement concert. We saw each other, and that hit was the last time we saw each other. So we were not particularly close. We were friends, friendly. But yeah, that is the Facebook post that changed everything for all of us.
I love that. And then you met and
Yeah, they come home every year for either Thanksgiving or Christmas. So I think it was maybe Christmas that year you guys came home and he's like, "Oh, we'd love to talk to you, introduce you to my husband. Let's, go to brunch." So we went to brunch and yeah, that's kind of how things worked out.
I
And that
love
was
it.
after our first journey went very sideways. And Sam was one of the first people we called or I called, I guess, because that was before Daniel and Sam knew each other. When that happened, because she had been our advisor at that point, like sort of through, okay, here's what to expect, here's what it's going to be like on transfer day, and she was like, and she was checking in. I mean, she proactively reached out. She's like, today's beta day, right? What are your betas? What are your betas?
So
And
Sam was like your unofficial agency.
yeah,
She was
I
like
know.
surrogacy Sherpa.
she was like,
Because that's
she was
kind of what the agency's supposed to do. The agency's supposed to say, "Oh, today is your." Yeah, I guess you didn't get that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, not as much. But yeah, I mean, I kind of like to say like Sam was the original journey doula.
Oh, I love that name. I love that
So
name.
the journey doula is the name of the project management system in our platform, and Sam was original. She's the original.
She's the OG. Yes,
I like that. I'll take that.
you'll take that. Okay, so then you just, carried their two children effortlessly, of course, right?
Well, Berkeley kind of gave me a run for my money, but yeah, everything was good.
I was saying that facetiously, but yes, I know. Every surrogate, even though you're free from complications,
Yeah,
you're growing a human, right? So, I mean, that
yeah,
is just no joke. Like when people
everything
say,
went well.
yeah, my surrogate was my younger cousin, and people are like, "What did you pay her?" I'm like, "Of course I paid her. She carried my twins. Are you kidding me? She couldn't like clock out at 5 and say, 'I'm done for the day.' It was a 24/7. Yes, I paid her. I offered to pay her, and she didn't say no. Why would she?
Yeah,
Right?
I don't think people understand how that works. Like they're like, "Oh, you must make really good money." Like they think you do this for money. And I'm like, "I make more money at work. There's easier ways to make money. Most
Yes.
people are not doing this to make money."
Mm-mm. It's a little extra. People have like put away for college for their kids, but in no way, shape, or form is it going to be life changing. Yeah, for sure.
We broke it down. Sam, do you remember when we did this just for fun? But we broke it down to like an hourly wage, and it's something like 70 cents an hour or
Yes,
something.
because it's 24/7. Pregnancy and shots and all that stuff 24/7. Well, except for your
And
first
they,
surrogate who
I
didn't
don't
take
think
a shot.
I was prepared for that my first journey either.
The
Like,
24/7?
well, I mean, I've been pregnant before. I knew that, but all the extra appointments that
Yes.
are required, and because I was over 35, it's, your geriatric or advanced maternal age. Like,
Did
I've
they
been
really say they said geriatric? I'm
I
sure they
said,
did.
I'm aware of how old I am. Janet Jackson was 50 something. Do not say that to me again. Like,
Yeah.
do not. Like, I don't need to hear how old I am every appointment. I am aware.
Yeah.
Just stop,
Hello.
please.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. No. And they say women can get pregnant somewhat safely, but safely until like 51, 52. So you're right.
Yeah.
Janet Jackson. Hello. So then after the babies or during the babies, when you carried how did you guys decide to do this platform and recreate this space to help people who are navigating this?
It came from the whole experience of our own surrogacy journey. I mean, just by the sheer nature of the challenging agency experience that we had, and then going into our independent journeys, being vigilant about knowing all sides, every part of the process, thoroughly figuring out every step of the way. It was all documented, just because we wanted to be very careful and not have any more heartache. And halfway through, I'm just like, wow, there has to be a better way here for folks like us to not have to be drowning in a sea of post-its and email threads and all sorts of documents and um, just the scatter that came with it. So we started thinking about Pineapple Family then, didn't have a name. And then every month that went by, it became a concept and then a wireframe and then fast forward to a beta and now we're in a place where it's live and it's our fully realized vision.
All right. And you're hoping that this definitely will either change or support. So give me some details. What makes you guys so different from the typical traditional agency platform?
Our whole platform is built on transparency and trust, and we want folks who are going through the independent surrogacy journey to be able to build direct relationships with all of the people who are participating in that journey, whether that's the surrogates that they choose, the medical providers, the clinical providers, attorneys, psychologists, anybody that is participating. We want folks to build out that direct relationship with them. Because really, at the end of the day, no one's going to advocate more for your own journey, as I've heard Sam say a number of times, more than you. And agencies do good work, they have a place. But for many other people, we just feel like they need the right education, the right tools, and the right empowerment to do it themselves.
Yeah, and not everybody can afford an agency. I mean, I met one of my intended parents, and he made a good living, and I told him what it was, what the cost is in the U.S. for if you work with an agency, and I said it's $200,000, and he goes, I couldn't afford to come to the U.S. and do a surrogacy now, and he has 13-year-old twins, and so people are priced out. So you also want to do it better, fill the gaps. Because you're right, like you said, there are really good agencies. And if that's the way somebody wants to go, I hope they get with a good agency for sure. Right?
Yeah, it's a different option. Like I said, when I was looking, I had never heard of independent. I never would have known, oh, I can do this on my own. I just thought that agency was the way to go. And I think that's what people believe. And that's what you're told. And that's what's out there. You don't really see any other options.
Yeah, I'm on all the Facebook groups. There's like a million, of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn about any of those groups until after my first journey. The only group that I was in was the group that my agency had. I didn't know that there was other groups out there.
Right.
But other surrogates, which I had to do behind the scene because there were certain things that we weren't allowed to talk about in the group. That's where I learned a lot of stuff.
You're looking at my face because that's your group. You should be able to discuss whatever you want to discuss. But I have heard talking to some surrogates, they're like, oh yeah, this is my agency. We can't talk about that. Or if we do, they're like, yeah, they don't answer that question.
Mm-hmm. Or they won't approve it, or they'll moderate it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, it bears saying out loud, because Stephanie, you said it. There are good agencies.
Absolutely.
There are good agencies, but we just had a call with somebody who's fairly well known in the agency community, and I won't name names, who is not thrilled with the way we talk about agencies sometimes. But it was a great conversation, right? And she said very transparently, there's a lot of bad agencies. There are a ton of mediocre agencies. And there's some good agencies, right? And that is, I think, what we've seen as well. We have been told that we trash talk agencies, and that's not our goal.
Oh yeah, let's get to that because it's quite controversial.
Yeah. Well, let's that's not our goal, is to trash talk agencies. But when you have somebody very senior and well known who is an agency owner who says exactly what I just said, that was a near verbatim quote. The issue is with those bad plus mediocre agencies, right? There is a lot of space there. And when you hear the same things over and over and over again from gestational carriers, intended parents, egg donors to an extent, that does mean some of those things are structural and foundational to the model.
Absolutely.
Right? And
Absolutely.
yes, there are great agencies, and you hear like some of these great agency owners are like, well, but not my agency. Sure, not your agency, but as a sort of aggregate issue in the industry, that's what we are
Mhm.
talking about. So we're not trash talking agencies, any individual agency. If we're going to call out an agency, we're going to name it and we're going to cite our sources,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But when we talk about things, so Samantha was talking about like there were certain things she wasn't allowed to talk about in the groups that her agency stood up, and we hear over and over again from surrogates like, oh, wasn't allowed to talk about this with my IPs, and we hear from IPs, oh, we were told never to tell the surrogate what we're paying the agency. There is a big part of this industry, whether that's by design or just how it's worked out, that functions on information asymmetry, right?
Yeah.
And we believe that all parties to a surrogacy journey, I mean, this is one of the most intimate relationships you're going to have in your life,
Yeah.
deserve access to equal information.
For sure. I don't think my surrogate knew how much I paid for my IVF. I mean, I don't think she knew. I mean, she knew it was expensive, but I don't think she knew how much I paid.
I mean, your medical costs are a little bit different. Like if you were
Yeah.
paying, if you were paying an agency, right? I don't know if you went through an agency or not.
I did
Um,
not because it was a nearly 8 year
it-
journey. And so I was kind of tapped out financially. And so I couldn't, even though I looked at that one agency online, it was the oldest agency, Center for Surrogate Parenting. So they were the only agency online. I think there was like three agencies back then or something like that, but I couldn't even afford that then. I mean, I was just some reporter said to me, "Oh, you were rich. That's why you had your surrogacy." I'm like, "No, I wasn't rich. I went camping. We had 10-year-old cars. We didn't go to vacations for our anniversary and our birthdays and anything." Right? Like camping was what we did, right? Like, one of my friends said, "Oh, we went on a cruise for our anniversary and he bought me this necklace." I'm like, oh, and what planet is that? I mean,
well, that
all our
But
disposable
why do you have
income.
to see? Why do you have to justify that? Because and I ask that rhetorically, but I feel like that's the common refrain. When people think about
Right.
surrogacy, they equate it with some upper echelon or upper socioeconomic status, and maybe that's the case, but there has been a volume of agencies in this field who are not the only voices in the room. They just happen to be the loudest ones, and they publish a lot of literature and a lot of language that, in our opinion, kind of gives them some reason to charge the prices that they charge. But there's a
Oh,
whole host of other families out there that simply
but
can't afford it. They're regular
they're
individuals.
they're at the different spectrum. I'm just talking about it just costs $200,000 and it's a typical agency. So that's a typical IVF cost, typical agency, surrogate, da da da. It's going to be $200,000. And when people look at $200,000, if you do a surrogacy, they think you're rich.
mhm,
You're not.
you're not.
You're
I mean, how many
not.
people, to your point, you were camping, you didn't get the anniversary present that some of your friends had because that went into the surrogacy fund,
Your car
right?
is 10 years old. You're pulling money out of your 401k. Your financial guy is saying, if you keep this up, it's going to affect your retirement. I'm like, well, how do I stop this? I mean, seriously, I'd like to get off this hamster wheel, but I'm not getting pregnant. And you have two babies right now. So
I have a
that's not my
close
world,
I
right?
have a close relative who went through the surrogacy process just the same, oh, IVF and surrogacy. And she's a doctor by trade and ended up getting a part-time job at a retail company. I won't
Yes.
name the company, but because they provided surrogacy benefits that her medical company that she was working for
Oh,
didn't. I mean, it sounds unscrupulous, but these are things that
what?
ordinary people are looking at. They're taking out home equity lines of credits, building,
Correct.
taking on
So what?
second jobs,
So we did. Yeah.
figuring out ways to cobble together some sort of financial nest just to be able to have a family.
Oh, we moved into the one bedroom of our best man's house and shared the guest bathroom with everybody for 6 months. Yeah, that's what we did too. My dresser was, those Target plastic drawers?
Oh
That was
yeah.
my dresser. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything else was in storage. Yeah. People go, I can't do that. I'm like, yeah, I was smart though. I bought a house and then I pulled the equity out of the house to fund my IVF. But you're right, though. Like people just think you are rich, and she's a doctor. But see, when I was going through IVF and everything, there wasn't insurance. Thank God, like the tech companies, they had to start offering insurance. Some pulled back, but most of them do egg freezing and surrogacy. But you're right. You're right. We have to change the the space out there because everybody thinks you're rich when you do a surrogacy. And I guess it's probably because, California, if it bleeds, it leads. So the actors and the actresses, they're the ones that, people, they do surrogacy and people think everybody is rich and you're not,
Well,
right?
I like to say too, everybody spends their money on what they want to spend their money on. That is what was important to you.
Exactly. I wanted a baby.
That's not what is important to them. They'll save and spend their money on what they want to spend their money on. So who are you to judge me what I'm spending my money on?
Right. I just think they just make that assumption. I don't know if it's a
Mhm.
judgment, more of an assumption that they think we're rich. And you're right. Let's talk about those agencies that charge $600,000 and $200,000 and $100,000. They are, and I know some of them. One of them I think is fantastic and amazing. And that's a different space altogether. And if people think and people believe that they're going to get excellent care and better care if they spend that much money, fine, they can do that.
Well, yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, we say, like, I look at it this way, right? There's a difference between let's have a baby and let's pay for a luxury concierge service.
If you can go to the luxury resort, the private island, and pay to have five butlers, then you are paying that agency, and that is your level, right? But most people are not at that
Because then
level.
there's everybody else.
There's everybody else.
And you're not guaranteed a baby either.
No, you're not. And they tell you in 45 different ways they're not guaranteed a baby because you're not. It's still the same process. It's still the egg and the sperm, embryos. You still got to have good embryos and you still have to have a good environment for that embryo to stick. In fact,
And
you actually need a better environment than better embryos because a great
that's
uterus can overcome the embryo not being so strong, in
and
my
Stephanie, I'm
opinion.
glad that you said that though, because it's true. It is the same process,
It
right?
is,
Like at
isn't
the
it?
end of the day, it is you create embryos. Now that we have PGA testing, we do embryo testing. You
Yep.
still are working with your IVF clinic, who is going to
Yeah.
decide if your surrogate's cleared or not. You're going to work with your reproductive
Mhm.
attorneys and your therapist for the psych screening.
Yep.
Those professionals do not change
They don't.
because you're using an agency, you're going independent. If your agency charges 30,000 or 300,000, the
Yep.
process is still relatively the same.
Really, it is. It truly is the same. Yeah, for sure. For sure. What do you think though for agencies? The only state that licensed agencies, and yes, you know where I'm going, and goes
Yep.
through the background of agency owners and does a deep dive on them. They even find parking tickets from 20 years ago, is New York State.
State. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am one of these people personally. Like now you're getting into public policy, which is my bread and butter.
Oh,
Um, but you hear a lot of people who say more regulation is always bad. And as a general rule of thumb, I think that can be true when it's done in a ham-fisted sort of way. That being said, I think we should look at New York and be impressed with the way they've been able to balance that scale, and really look at a way to protect surrogates. Now, one thing I'll say, we're a platform, not an agency. And so
correct.
you look at some of the way things are written, even in some of the professional associations. They're not written for someone like us, right? So we have to
No.
ask a lot of questions. What does this mean if you're a platform, not an agency? And so, for example, we have paused accepting surrogates in New York on our platform until we can figure out exactly how we can be on the right side of this set of policies and this law.
Yeah.
I'm personally I am all for common sense protective legislation.
I am too.
But it has to be done in a common sense way that isn't trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah, and too often stakeholders who have nothing, stakeholders aren't involved and
Yes.
get bad policy, bad regulation.
It's crazy
Well,
sometimes when you're like redoing your home, for example, you see all sorts of intricacies around the types of wrought iron door that you can have, or how you can put an easement in, or a window
oh,
tray. I'm being facetious here, but
no,
like
you're not
the
because you're talking
level
about what
of
happened when we renovated our house.
no,
No.
we're not going to that. But the level of granularity and surgical specificity that you see in what can sometimes objectively be felt like the most insignificant things, like, the shade of gray on a cement block, that has volumes and reams of policy and organization behind it, city, region, block by block.
You're
But then
right.
you look at surrogacy and it's just like, yeah, this seems like it fits. And it's shocking because, to say that in 2026, New York is the only state that has, advanced in this way,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that
Agencies are the
across.
only part, the only part of this process that doesn't have a license.
That's right. That's
Everybody else
absolutely.
does. Attorneys, mental health, physicians, yes.
But
Doulas,
they want
midwives.
all the money.
Sorry?
They want all the money.
Well, they don't, if you look at, like, they work for 2 years. So and plus there's 400 agencies. Unless you are at the top tier charging two, three, four, five, $600,000, most agencies are not making a ton of money right now. They're just not. So if they charge $35,000 and that's 2 years worth of work, that's not a lot of money, I have to say. But um, I think let's be honest. Everybody drives a car. Not everybody does this surrogacy. I tell this to people all the time. There are not over 400 car companies in the United States alone. So something has to change, something, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody needs 400 agencies, right? But let's get back to your platform because I really want to dive more into that.
Sorry, can we just talk
Yeah,
about regulation a little bit more, because
for sure.
there's a flip side to this that I think is really important. The lack of regulation.
Yes.
The lack of regulation creates a vacuum where now you have like knee-jerk state legislatures, whether they have a particular political persuasion or not. We just got pulled
Florida,
into something. Well, so there's something that just came out in Florida. We got pulled into
Texas,
something today from Texas,
Texas.
asking us to help connect this organization with experienced surrogates and intended parents. There's a hearing next week in Texas. Do you
I
know about
know.
this?
I know.
Yeah.
I'm licensed in Texas.
Oh, you're licensed in Texas, so you know.
I know.
And so this is the other thing that happens when there is a lack of regulation, is that void is filled by the political flavor of the week.
And that political flavor happens to be anti-surrogacy. Yes.
That's right.
And this is backlash to the Mark surrogacy case because Texas, in Austin, actually, it's called Bear County, but it's spelled Bexar. If you know anything about Texas, you know they're going to pronounce things however they want. They will tell you that. They will tell you. You know how you say voir dire? They call it voir dire, and they know they say it wrong, and they don't care.
Okay.
But this one county, Bear County in San Antonio and Austin, this county had a Mark surrogacy case, and they're pissed. And it's affected my cases in Texas. Sometimes there's a hearing, they want more information. There's a new company called SuroStudy. I'm on the advisory board, full disclosure, and it's to go a deeper dive into the backgrounds of intended parents as well as surrogates too. You can do it, right? So there's more transparency, right? Because nobody's going into the background of these intended parents. Obviously, these were bad actors. The attorney involved thinks she did nothing wrong by creating 20
We know
children.
her.
You know her. Oh, okay.
We'll talk about that off your podcast.
I know her too. We'll talk about that later. Yes. Sorry, people. But yes. And so this is backlash to that. There are repercussions for sure.
But
Yes.
maybe just to segue to why Pineapple Family exists here, I'll say this: when we were on the intended parent side, when we were doing all the discovery and the research and getting into surrogacy, I found that a lot of the literature and the language was written tuned to intended parents, and it was about surrogates. It wasn't necessarily for surrogates. Like the content wasn't written for them. Maybe that's changed since we started, but one of our goals for Pineapple Family is to make sure that surrogates specifically feel more prepared. They have more education, they have more empowerment, and then we provide the tools. But we want them to be set up for success when they go into this process. So you talk about cases that have been sensationalized and what have maybe as a byproduct of those experiences ushered in all sorts of different points of view, good and bad. Well, our intent is to help surrogates come to the table, know that they have a seat, and know what questions to ask, understand what the process includes end to end, figure out where they can challenge in the right way so that they're representing their interests fully, because they're the ones doing the work. I don't mean that in a flat way, but they're actually doing the work. You can't take time off from pregnancy. You're the one who's bringing children into the world in the full sense of that experience. And we want people to understand, at least from an educational sense, what to expect. Every single milestone, every step of the way. What are areas that could be pitfalls? How do you navigate through that? And then how do you build relationships with the parents and providers around you to help you get all the way through the experience in the best way possible?
Correct. Because like Sam didn't even know that the Facebook groups existed. And if you are not on Facebook and you don't have somebody to tell you, oh, there's this group with former surrogate, not former, but some former
Yeah.
surrogates, some surrogates, right? Because they will tell all the new surrogates who are like, oh, I'm thinking about it. I've checked these agencies, and they're like, girlfriend, take a time out. They say a 6 months to a year of research. Talk to as many people as you can, is what they say. But if you don't have that guidance, like Sam, you're like, I had no idea. I thought I'd pick an agency and this was
That's
the one I
most
clicked
first
with
time
and away I
right?
went, right? I
Most
tell my intended parents, it's so funny. And I kind of instinctively knew this, but they'll talk to me and I'm like, listen, your day will come the day that baby is born. But right now, it's all about your surrogate. Because you're right, she's doing the work. Their job essentially, fund your trust, pay her, obviously, if there's a breach, obviously. But for the most part, surrogacy, if she gets pregnant, surrogate gets pregnant, as your experience, there's little hiccups, but it's typically somewhat uneventful. And then, but your job essentially is to support her and pay her. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Yeah. Talk to your attorney, file your paperwork so she's not the parent, because any surrogate will tell me, hello, where's the paperwork? I want to sign, right? Like, but yeah, that's it, basically, essentially. And really and truly, just don't be an asshole. I'm not talking about the surrogate, the parents mostly.
Well,
You
you
hear
we
a lot of horror
Sam,
stories with that. Like right now, in one of my groups, this lady's like, okay, so I was promised this great relationship. I realized that you're not guaranteed anything because sometimes people don't match or things happen. But just like the minute she signed the contract and got pregnant, these people were just treating her terribly.
I
And so
hate
now
that.
she's like, I don't know if I want them in the room for the birth. And everybody's like, well, they're paying you. You need to let them in there. And I'm like, no, like they can't treat you like crap and then want to be in this space where like it's kind of a big deal. You're having a baby.
Yep,
Like Josh said before, I think it was Danny, it's intimate.
it
And you don't want
is.
somebody, it's hard enough to have somebody you don't know really in there with you and then
Right?
some
Think about that.
poorly, like
Yeah.
to be relaxed and things like that so she can give birth to your baby. So I don't
Yeah.
know, I just it's hard because you want to give them that opportunity, but you're a person too, you're not just a body. And I feel like sometimes the wires get crossed there, and some parents recognize that, other parents don't, but there's also
Mm.
bad actors on surrogate side too.
There,
So
there are. Yes, there are. I've had very long 10 months with a surrogate I think about that pops into my head. But yeah, yeah. She couldn't manage to get to an appointment to save her life. And it was very long, very long. Usually I'm happy if I'm on the attorney side and I have the surrogate. I have a case right now and I have the better deal. For sure. But you're right. Just essentially, right? Like you're as I say, you're growing a human, right? So as you know, matching. So how do you match on your website? Like, because the platform facilitates that, right?
Yeah, so there's two, well, really three main parts of our platform. There's the matching, the journey management, and the community. And the community is fledgling. It's very nascent. We just launched, but we're hoping that the community becomes a place where anyone on a fertility journey, not just somebody going through surrogacy, not just people going through an egg donation journey, but really anybody who is on a fertility journey can find a safe, anonymous place where we're not selling your data and monetizing it, where they can connect with like-minded people for community advice, support. That's the community component. The matching component that you asked about is pretty standard. Whether you're an egg donor, a surrogate, or an intended parent, you create a profile, you upload photos. We took a lot of time designing the onboarding and the profile creation to understand what matters to intended parents, surrogates, and egg donors. And then there's some machine learning on top of that that tries to anticipate what the best matches are going to be. So you get a rank ordered. We think you're going to match well with this person. I don't want to spend a ton of time on that. A lot of different platforms in different environments, whether that's dating, whether that you inserted here, do matching, right? What we all agreed on early on was really important was autonomy and safety. And so the first thing that you do if you find a profile, so let's say you're a potential surrogate, you're browsing intended parents that seem like people you might want to carry for. The first thing you can do is express interest. So you just click a little button that says, I'd be interested. And then that set of intended parents gets a notification. They can look at your profile. And if they're like, yeah, this seems great, they can also express interest. Until both parties have expressed interest, nobody can send anybody a message.
That makes sense.
On top of that, nobody on our platform can send a message to anybody else until they have gone through a third-party ID verification. So we use Stripe ID. That way, at least, this is just basic tip of the iceberg stuff, because you could still be like a total jerk, whatever that is here. But at least the person on the other end of that message is who they say they are.
Correct. Because that's one thing about Facebook. Is that person, and now that you can use nicknames, you have no idea. Yes. That's
right. And we do, so when you sign up for the platform, you are generated an alias. You cannot pick your own alias, and that is because people accidentally, but it is human psychology, will pick aliases that are way too easy to identify themselves with. Right. And so we don't want you to
Caballero, right? Yeah.
Right. As Caballero, or they use, whatever alias they use in their Gmail account that they posted to this forum over here, and somebody can reverse engineer it. Right.
Yeah.
So we assign you a system alias. Some people don't love that. They're like, what? Who am I? Like, I don't love this name. We actually give you two aliases. So you get a separate alias for our community. We call our community the Grove. And the reason for that, let's say you're a surrogate who is using Pineapple Family, and you're in the middle of a journey, and you're having an issue with your intended parents. And you want to go to the Grove and post to the community like, hey, I'm having this issue. Can somebody give me advice?
But you
don't want your intended parents are also community members. So you want those two identities separate from one another.
That's very smart.
Yeah, we really tried to think through what is going to be most useful for surrogates, intended parents, and egg donors.
Because you want them to be able to post and feel safe, but if they have to post with their alias that their IPs know, then they may not feel safe posting.
Exactly
and
right.
Even the IPs, right? Like, how do I handle this situation? And right, yeah.
My surrogate doesn't want me coming to appointments anymore. My surrogate makes me wait a week before an update after an appointment. Like, those are the kinds of things you want people to be able to go to the community and express.
Yeah.
And if their Pineapple alias is the same as their Grove alias, they're like, okay, but then the other person's going to see that.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. I love that. That is fabulous. All right. And then you have Journey Doula, right?
That's right. So the Journey Doula is our journey management system that everybody on the platform has access to. Surrogates and egg donors have access to the full doula the minute they sign up, although there are features that don't unlock until you're matched, for obvious reasons. There's certain things you can't do until you have a match. And the journey doula, depending on the journey type, is anywhere from a handful to, if you're an intended parent who's going through both an egg donation and a surrogacy journey, I think there's 21 different milestones. And within each milestone, there could be a dozen different tasks. I mean, you've been through surrogacy, Stephanie, but
sometimes it feels like there's more.
It could be more. But the journey doula brings you through everything from education when you first decide you want or are thinking about going through this journey, all the way to when that baby comes home. It helps with coordinating travel if somebody needs to travel to a clinic.
Which
it helps
more often than you think.
It actually, I think, happens the majority of the time.
Correct.
Right? Yes. It walks, and I'm only touching on some of the high level stuff here. There's a medication management calendar that you can choose to share with your IPs, and even tick a box if you want them to know when you took a shot. That's your choice if you want to share that. That was born out of personal experience. There is advice on finding short-term rentals if you have to travel for the birth of a baby.
Yeah.
Something that you'll appreciate. The pre-contract discussion planner. So it is a role-aware joint module that you are supposed to work on between either your egg donor and intended parent or surrogate and intended parent, that lets you asynchronously walk through the different pieces that are normally found in a contract. And it'll automatically flag the entries that you've agreed on. So, for example, if you've already talked about compensation, you will say $50,000. That just turns green and you click, yep, we agree on that. If there's a place where you disagree, then you can flag that for discussion. So you're only spending time when you jump on your video call. We also have video calling in the platform. Okay, these are the 10 things that we flagged as we need for discussion. And then there's a flag where you can say, I want my attorney's advice. And either the intended parent or the surrogate or the egg donor can flag any of these things. And at the end, I think for a surrogacy journey, there's, oh my God, the last I counted, there's 150, 180 different terms to deal with.
Oh, yes.
Yep. And so they're all accounted for. And then there is a PDF that you can export for both of your attorneys, so that you can walk into your attorney's office and say, attorney, here are the things we've discussed. Here's the things we think we agree on, the things that we think that we need some advice on, or that we're stuck on.
Love that. Because the thing is that for independent journeys, my office and the IVF Center take the place of an agency. And we spend hours and hours and days and sometimes weeks and months walking them through all this, because nobody wants to get to a legal contract, which is what we are. We're at an attorney's office and they've spent money on the contract. They've spent money for their surrogate to be represented, but they haven't decided on these terms. And then the match breaks because they can't come to an agreement. So when we tell people, no, you need to have already decided on for the majority of your terms before you come to us. Right? They sometimes they get upset, but it's because the legal is the last step before the transfer. And you don't want to have come this far, because when I did it, it was a fresh transfer. It wasn't frozen. So it took a year. It didn't take 2 years to have a baby. It took a year, right? So it was a much quicker, in some ways simpler process. But you still needed to come to the attorneys. But my clients have been spending like sometimes 2 years. And who wants that to break when you get to that point? Oh, I love that.
I'll just say, I went to a conference recently where I heard some attorneys say outright, candidly, behind closed doors, where they're like, yeah, we don't take independent surrogacy, folks, because it's too much of a clerical challenge for us. And I was just like, wow, what a disappointing thing to hear. There's so many individuals who go through independent surrogacy who need those professional service providers that provide legal counsel. I'm empathetic because I understand you want to be the person providing guidance on the legal contract, and your job is not necessarily to be the educator per se, but a facilitator in that regard. And that's why we feel it's important to prepare folks as best we can with all of the education up front, so that they can spend time actually having meaningful conversations with their attorneys to resolve any points of discussion after the IP and the surrogates have
And,
already
and I
come.
don't blame those attorneys at all because when somebody is independent, we charge more for an independent journey because it's more work. But then the people coming to us don't want to spend the money because they're independent because they can't afford an agency for the most part.
Yep.
So that's why these attorneys, if you look at it from a cost benefit analysis, it doesn't, it's not, they're not making any money helping these people. And then the IVF physician's office, we are the two people that step in for the agency. And I'm not an agency. I don't do matching. I don't really like, no, so, but you're right. The emailing and the consults I do for independents, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. I still do them, but it's a lot.
And Stephanie, that's why, we believe and we think that somebody using the Journey Doula, one of the things we spent a lot of time talking to service providers, right, about what the pain points for independent surrogacy was. And we say it's sort of one of our marketing lines, but it's true. We want to make sure that independent doesn't mean unprepared. And we want to make sure for the service providers, if anything, somebody coming to you through Pineapple Family is, if anything, coming better prepared sometimes than some of your agency clients because they have to go through the Journey Doula. They're going through that education. They're having to hands-on click through the tasks and manage those things. So, Stephanie, I hope if a Pineapple Family, whether it's a GC or an IP comes to you, you're going to take one look and say, this is one of the most organized journeys I've touched in a long time.
Right? I'm gonna love it. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yes,
Okay, so
with my agency, we didn't do that. Like I set the comp that I wanted and I set if I wanted to pump or not. And that was it. Everything else was like I didn't see until the contract came. And then it was like it had 2 weeks maternity leave for vaginal and 4 weeks for C-section. And I was like,
no, you're supposed to get more for that. That's
that's not
not
gonna work
standard.
for me. So I changed it, but it still wasn't even standard. I got 4 and 6 weeks instead when it should have really been like 6 and 8.
6 and 8.
So
Now,
when I was matching with Josh and those guys, I just wrote a comp sheet. I didn't know that's what it was called, but I was like, this is what was in my contract before. So I'm just writing these things. There might be a couple other things that I needed that wasn't in that. And then I just handed that to them. So
that agency, no. You should have a whole benefit package and everything should be there from invasive procedures to, travel to breast pumping, which is 24/7, which I tell my intended parents, she has to wake up in the middle of the night and pump for you. So just keep that in mind.
they had told some people they don't get anything for pumping.
Oh God, no. Who
And
gets
I was
nothing?
like,
That is not standard.
I'm not doing that for free.
No,
I'm not.
that's standard. I always tell my clients, tell everybody, so you follow the standard. You want to never go below the standard. It's 6 to 8 weeks. You should get maternity clothes. You get 2 times, once in the beginning, once in the obviously the 6 to 8 weeks. A lot of surrogates, if they have a vaginal birth, especially, get a little antsy, and they can go back to work early. But
But let
that's
that
on
be their
them.
choice. Let
And
that be
that's their choice.
yeah.
Because again, you've given birth how many times? Pregnancy and childbirth is different every time. Who's to
It is.
say this, you might need a little bit more time to recover? Come on, right? Yep. So Daniel, you have the AI background and the tech background, right? So I'm sure that has helped you in this process, yes?
It has, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, we're all starting from the same line when it comes to AI. So my skill level might be different, but my knowledge is likely similar across the board from everybody who met AI when it first came on the scene.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. But you have a more tech background than just AI, correct?
Yeah, it's by way of my husband Josh here, who
Oh,
conned me into this. I'm kidding. My former life was in retail and apparel branding, and when I moved to San Francisco, I got more into technology marketing, oddly in the hardware space. I don't ask me how or why, but I found a professional passion working for original equipment manufacturers of hardware devices that had software embedded on them. So very not in any way, shape, or form sexy at all. But that was my career for over a decade, where I led
Wow.
marketing for hardware software companies. And it was through that experience that I advocated for parental rights within one of the financial technology companies I worked for, not a hardware company, but I
Love
was
that.
a leader in their Pride group and spearheaded their representation for uh, parents and family leave benefits expansion, which was really great. And that was my first introduction early on into understanding what all was included in family planning rights. And I was both surprised and excited by the opportunity, but surprised that that those benefits weren't already included,
Shock.
especially during that period of time at working in tech where everything was very progressive. Every startup wanted to attract high quality, high caliber candidates.
Yeah.
And that was something that I was successful in doing, was bringing those benefits to the company I worked for. And then as I moved forward, both in my personal life and professional life, the concept of a family turned into a reality. So I was able to marry my professional rigor with my personal passions. And I'm very thankful and grateful to be able to be here today with that business acumen, but
Oh,
also with my interests in family and building
right.
a
Yeah.
company that can do that at scale, hopefully.
Good for you. As Sam and I can attest as women, the family planning space, yeah, they give you it was decided by a man, a male OBGYN, the 6 weeks, 8 weeks, because that's when your uterus goes back to normal. So that's why women get, and they say, oh, I have maternity leave. I'm like, no, you have disability. There is no maternity leave in this country. So I really am actually thankful for the tech industry because they have actually highlighted the lack of maternity care and family planning and the help that some people need, right? And when you have a baby, you want to be able to take care of your baby. So I think
Yeah,
it's
and
great.
when I had my kids, well, I had my daughter right after my freshman year of college, so I wasn't really working like that. So I didn't. I was out of school. I stayed home with her for 3 months, and then I went back to school and work.
Of course, because
Son, I
you
was only working part time, so I didn't qualify for anything. So
no.
I didn't work for 3 months, and I didn't get paid for 3 months.
Yeah, it's rough. It's tough. So at least that is, I have to say that's one good thing for that. Okay, so I have to ask because I'm part of this professionals group. And you have mentioned, I think, on your website, do you mention the professionals group that or the ethical group? Do you mention that on your website?
Yeah, we mentioned seeds. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So I think you aren't or you think the model should be changed in some way. Am I correct in that?
Well,
Right?
what we say about seeds is I think a very fair.
And I'm a member. Just like
Yeah, and you are, and that's fair. We are debating membership. We just had a conversation with Seeds. There are some things in the Seeds bylaws that might make it really difficult for us to become members. And so that's one of the things we're trying to work our way through. Now, we're very clear. The Seeds guidelines are in many cases very good. And we do think all intended parents, surrogates, egg donors should read them. Um, and in fairness to Seeds, it is a volunteer run organization, right? It is a
100%.
volunteer run organization. There's one or two paid employees.
yes.
So it's very small. Where I get squirrely, and this is what we say on our website,
Of course.
sticking a badge on your website is not the same thing as being ethical. And you've mentioned the Facebook groups. I can't tell you how many times I see somebody say some flavor in a Facebook group of something like, well, they're a Seeds member, so they're ethical or they're fine. Seeds, being a Seeds member, okay, great. That's a good start. That does not mean that a surrogate or an intended parent or an egg donor should not do their research. It does not mean they should not be digging deep. And so there are things in Seeds that give me pause for concern. I think they're doing great work when it comes to their new escrow rules that I think have to be followed by mid-July or something like that.
Yes,
I
except
think
for
that,
I do have issue with some of the escrow rules.
well, and so let me give my, there are exceptions. There are people who can get an exception to the rule. And so, I always say, what good are rules if somebody gets a hall pass?
Yeah.
Right. And Seeds is Seeds. They're the worst Seeds can do to an unethical agency is take away their Seeds membership. Right. And I think that's great. That's a good thing to do. But let's understand the limitations behind this organization and not assume sticking that badge on a website automatically means that an agency or service provider is ethical, because I can go through their roster of members and start pointing out ones that we have receipts for that are not.
Yeah, and you're right. It's a volunteer organization. They are definitely trying and doing their best. I voiced my displeasure, or no, the new escrow rules. I think that you should, when you're insured, I think it should be insured up to the amount you hold in escrow. I don't think you should be have to have a certain amount, right? But if it's to the amount you hold in escrow, because that's what happened to the Seam breach. They didn't have enough insurance to well, she was stealing the money, so who's
Yeah.
going to have enough in that, right? Right. So, and I don't know, she might have been a Seeds member, right? And it is a volunteer organization and it's guidelines. So guidelines are not rules. You don't have to follow them. It's not a statute, right? You don't have a license. You don't have anything to lose. It's just like ASRM. Those rules, they're guidelines. You don't have to, right? You say you're going to follow them, but right. So,
But there's a slight difference, right? ASRM still is responsible to clinical guidelines that are published, that are enforced, they are inspected, they publish in a peer-reviewed journal. There is
absolutely.
There is rigor there.
There is rigor there because they got sued by the egg donor because they posted the guideline that said donors should only get $10,000.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And so they've removed that guideline and said, like, we want to make sure that you're not being financially coerced, but we're not going to tell you what you can charge. Yeah. And so I just think it's very important, again, back to transparency, which is one of our core pillars. Let's be transparent about what this is and what this isn't.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, I go to the meetings and I like meeting and seeing and talking to the people, and I learn something new every time I go. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely ways, and we're getting standards and we're trying to, improve the organization. I'm the chair along with another colleague on the legal standards committee. So.
Oh, great. We just did a podcast with somebody who's on one of the standards committees. It wasn't the legal one. I think it was the surrogacy standards committee.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many people on the committee.
What do you think about in-house escrow?
Okay, so I am an attorney and I hold escrow, right? I've done it for 20 years. So for an attorney, for me, right, I'm licensed attorney. If I steal your money, I'm kind of lose my license, and I'm not going to steal your money. I don't think agencies should hold escrow, if that's what you're talking about. I just really don't. But I have to say that the agency my husband owns held escrow, and they did a great job. And another agency that's one of the top tier, the one that charges, 200, 300, 400, they used to hold money in trust for 30 years and did a fabulous job. And when they sent it somewhere else, that person took the money. So, right, as a rule of thumb, no, agencies should not. No.
Yeah, that was something else with my agency that I wasn't necessarily made aware of either. They had in-house escrow, and
I think I can figure out who your agency was.
It didn't happen when I was there, but after my journey, some bad stuff happened.
Yep, I know exactly who you were with. Yes, I do. Yeah, too bad you didn't have the one coordinator that used to work there, because she was pretty amazing. There was another one, but you probably wouldn't have had him either. So, yes.
I didn't even really know they had men working there besides the owner attorney person.
They did. Oh, this is a different agency. Okay, we can talk offline. But yeah. No,
There's
in-house escrow for sure. No. But then I get lumped in with in-house escrow because I represent the intended parents of the surrogate and sometimes I hold money. But I treat it just like anybody else. I don't have my attorney hat on that. I don't care who I represent. And for the most part, the biggest issue I've had in escrow, because not going to take your money. The biggest issue I have is when my couples break up and she's got an embryo and he's done, and it's usually had, man and woman, he's done. It's either her sister's eggs or her eggs. It's her last chance to have a baby. It was his money. And she doesn't, but they signed it together, my FMA, and she doesn't want to sign it to give the money back. That's the biggest issue I've had in 20 plus years with escrow.
that sounds like a mess.
Yeah, because it's heartbreaking,
Yeah.
but it's his money. So we say, we need a judgment. I'm sorry. I need something. I need a court order. And I have had a couple times a court order, which then I just transfer the money out. Yeah, that's very heartbreaking. But that's all I've had, for sure. That's all I've had. Okay.
I mean, we firmly are in the camp of agencies should not hold escrow.
No,
We're generally in the camp, and one thing we see a lot of in this industry, and again, where we say it, go in eyes wide open, and where we get sometimes accused of trashing agencies, but just the foundational and systemic conflicts of interest in this industry. There is in-house escrow. There's attorneys who work for the agency but are supposed to be representing the best interests of the surrogate. If you're an employee of the agency, how are you actually doing that, whether you intend to or not? Or the attorneys who are getting such a huge volume of referrals from an agency that it creates, whether you intend for it to or not, right? An inherent conflict of interest. You see the same thing with the therapist. You see, there is just so much opportunity for inherent conflict of interest. And, people try to be good. As a general rule, sure, there's jerks. There's horrible people, like the people who do steal the escrow money or mark surrogacy. But I think you also have a lot of people who really do want to be good. But when your entire ability to feed your family and your entire income stream is wrapped up in one or two income sources, it's going to impact your decision making.
Yeah, I know the agency, one of them that you're talking about, and they are in-house. They work for the agency and they're attorneys, and I know them, and I like them, but you're right. You work for an agency. I think I need to have them on to chat with them. You work for an agency, and then how do you take that hat off, and then you represent the intended parents or the surrogate. And I know some people still do joint representation. I don't do that because you know too much. You'll know the intended parents, right? I don't want to do that. No.
It seems unethical though. How could that work? How does that work?
Okay, so it's not unethical. You do full disclosure, and it's just like a real estate where we all share the same real estate attorney. However, we are creating human life here, and you are the surrogate. And so it's a little bit different than buying a house. But as long as you give full disclosure and you sign the appropriate potential conflict of interest waivers, you can do it. Yeah. So, and I don't think it's done that often. So for those agencies that have in-house, you have to have conflict waivers. I don't work with that agency, but I do sometimes do the agency reviews for clients of theirs, and they listed in their agency agreement. But yeah, and for some people, they want a one-stop shop for sure. Yeah.
I just hope the people who are doing that are going in eyes wide open, especially the surrogates.
Yeah, because the surrogates, everybody needs to be supported and taken care of. But I have to say,
I don't know
the surrogate.
If the average surrogate would know to ask for that though. I have a lot of green. I wouldn't probably have asked about that.
No, because you didn't know that there was all those Facebook groups where you can talk about those
Right.
things, which they're not the end all and be all. And there was a listserv called Surrey Moms Online before Facebook. Which I think was in some ways better just because, it was more transparent, right? Whereas the Facebook groups, and I think if you're anonymous, some of those people say things that they would never say in real life, right? Like
Yeah,
never.
there's a lot of mean girls out there.
Oh, I don't say anything. Sometimes if somebody's going through a really tough thing, I just like put a little care and heart it. But I'm like, I'm just a fly on the wall because you're right. Some of them are like, oh, she said that. Ooh. Yeah. Woof. Yikes. Yeah. Yeah. I seen one of them say, I'm leaving you. I can't take you guys anymore. You're just too much. You're not nice.
I've seen that I've seen that in a couple of groups. Like
Yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
definitely seen that in a couple of
You don't need
groups.
to make an announcement, just go.
I know. And then, of course, do you know what they said? They ripped her apart for doing that. I think she just wanted to tell them how they made her feel. Like and she wanted to say, if you're not, but those people, they're not going to care. They're like the trolls. So they're going to say whatever they want online and they're not going to say it in their real life.
Just
Right?
so unfortunate because those groups, I mean, if you think about it, like they they're really designed for surrogates and intended parents and egg donors, depending on the group, to find community and support through what is often one of the most challenging or life-changing things you could possibly do.
Yes.
And and listen, we're a platform for independent surrogacy, so we have a reason to be there, but you also have all these agencies and service providers and we're all there too. And it's really unfortunate because nobody got to be mean. Like, be honest. Be honest. Cite your sources. Give your opinions. Absolutely, but do it in a way that's like for the greater good.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. So, and gal, what do you want your people to take away, when they're listening to you about what is the single most important advice you want them to take away about your platform, your profit process, right? Sam, you go first. Ladies first.
Oh, geez, she put me on the spot.
Just be you.
I think for me, advocacy is my biggest thing. Like I get so sad when I see people be like, I didn't know, or this is happening to me, and they just thought that they had to go through that, or they can't say anything because the parents are paying them money, or this is what the agency said they had to do. You're grown. You don't have to do anything. Like, you can speak up for yourself, and you should speak up for yourself. And you really, really need to do that in this area. Because again, if I'm a firm believer that you are your best advocate for yourself, whether you use an agency or independent.
For sure, for sure. And right, I have to say that's I think the best piece of advice, especially for surrogates. Absolutely. For sure. Okay. Daniel?
Daniel, why don't you go?
Okay. Yeah, I think independent surrogacy is real. It's legal and it's dramatically more affordable. I don't think we're creating anything new here. This isn't a movement. Many families are already going through independent surrogacy because they've found that it is just, in many accounts, a better option. We've just built the infrastructure around it. And yes, I know this is a headline on our site, but independent surrogacy isn't just possible, it is doable as long as you have the right education, the tools, and the empowerment. And that's what we're here for.
For sure. And it definitely, like you said, it's a movement. People are doing it more and more and more. Absolutely. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I'll try to tie a bow around this, but I would tell intended parents and surrogates and egg donors, go in eyes wide open. This is it's going to be a challenging journey. It can be a joyous one. There's going to be ups. There's going to be really low downs, right? But it is a journey and it is not a short one. So go in eyes wide open. don't let anybody tell you that something about your journey is none of your business. Don't believe anyone who says you don't need to know that. Ask every question you have, and then ideally find some people who have been through it before and ask them what questions you're forgetting to ask.
Because you'll forget. Because you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
No.
And a successful journey, I firmly believe this, is one where every single person in it has an equal seat at the table and an equal stake in its success.
Yeah, I agree. For sure. Absolutely. All right.